All right.
You're supposed to
Welcome
go
to
3.
2.
You don't count the last 2.
Yeah, that's right. Welcome to Fringeworthy Team 6, Team Banzai Adventures. This is Bruce Sheffer, the GM. With us, we have Ken RMD, who's playing Chen Wei. We have Kaitlin, who is playing Angel. And we have Jason, who is playing Jason.
I'm so original.
And a few other characters who are currently not in the session, but maybe joining us later. Anyways, so we are on a world that is completely dark, and the surface is very cold. But it turns out that there's still plenty of people. They're either down in New Jerusalem, a city on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, or they're in this underground community called Sanctuary. And the reason that that New Jerusalem exists at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean is because the Atlantic Ocean isn't there anymore. It has been uplifted up into the atmosphere someplace, which is why it's so dark, because light doesn't go through miles of water very well. So, anyways, they are with the fine people of Sanctuary and trying to figure out a number of things. Ultimately, how to get them to let them go back to where the fringe portal is so they can go home. Because right now they're kind of stuck. So Chen Wei has been doing research for quite some time now, for a number of days, trying to get some answers to some questions. All right. So in answering to your questions, Chen Wei, um, copying as much science as you can is a bit of a problem. Like I said, you can get videos of, and some of them are obviously computer generated. But once you get past the essentially the grade school level, you're totally out of your element because you're not a very technical person. He's a martial artist from a world that essentially is operating at the tech level of 1900 Earth. So
Stay in your lane, Donnie.
yeah. So, but I'll try to give you the answers as best I can. Okay. So, as far as formulas for room temperature superconductors, sure, you can get those, but you do not understand how they're made. Okay.
It doesn't say like, so and so temperature or mix so and so.
What you can do? No, absolutely they don't. So what they do is, but they will tell you what range of temperatures they operate over, and how, why a super conductor is important, and things like that. Okay. The Now, one of the things you find out while you're doing this is that they solved a problem that is on Earth, which is the ability to have a quick response static memory cell. And what that does is that the way we do memory in our computers, they have to be refreshed. The bytes and stuff have to be refreshed all the time, and it takes a lot of power. And it's not very stable.
I definitely wouldn't notice that, but
Okay. Well,
probably
they would mention it as far as as far when it comes down to computers and superconductors, and saying that and because of that, first of all, the computers use much less power than they did back in the 20th century, and secondly, they can operate much well. They certainly operate much faster than they did in the 1950s. Okay, they're much more complex. Okay, because they do have integrated circuits and such. Okay, so it says here nuclear fusion. Nuclear fusion is basically hydrogen being smacked, hydrogen atoms being smashed together, turning into helium, releasing a lot of heat. Okay, and that
does it say what isotopes they use? Like
They
use
just use
regular hydrogen?
straight up hydrogen.
What temperature it's at?
That might be mentioned. It's going to be a really high temperature.
And what do they use, like magnets to confine it, or
Yeah.
what?
Yes, they use magnets, um, and you also find out that the primary source of power is not fusion. It's
Oh,
actually geothermal.
okay.
Okay.
Okay. Cure for cancer
There
or
is no cure for
diseases.
cancer. There are cures for diseases. There is no cure for cancer. Uh,
Okay,
the
so
Well, let me finish. The Central
yeah,
Church basically never, went by the Bible that said, you're a man is given 20, three score and 10, and that's the length of a person's life, and so they saw no need to, that if you get cancer, it's God's will.
God wills it.
so they don't generally. This again, this would be something I have to consult with party members with some knowledge of this stuff. But are there diseases that we would consider incurable that they would be able to cure, even if like cancer is not among them?
Well, what they do have, okay, is they have a lot of nano and pico technology. So as a result,
Pico.
they can cure your cancer by literally going into your body and destroying cancerous tissues. They just can't make you immune. They can't like give you an inoculation and you don't have cancer anymore.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I didn't write it down, but since we've seen, like, the UFOs and such with anti-gravity, do they have anti-gravity?
They do not have anti-gravity. As a matter of fact, the whole thing about the Zamboni uplift is that it's not anti-gravity, it's a standing wave of energy that basically can support, a certain amount of not pressure, but force. They basically can resist a certain amount of force. You pump the you pump enough energy into it in order for that to happen, and after that, basically, it's reliable and firm. And it's one of the reasons they were willing to do it was because it was reliable. They didn't have to worry about, hey, if these if this power if the power grid goes down, is the ocean going to collapse on us? And the answer was no.
That would
Okay.
suck. Oh, power
Are
went out.
there
Whoosh.
Yeah.
are there species that they don't have, either things like passenger pigeons or, like, fruits and vegetables or even animals that IDET might have and therefore might be able to trade with them?
Well, I can tell you that from what you're able to tell, most of the species of animals that existed went extinct due to encroachment in their habitats. The population of the world at the time that the Zamboni uplift happened was about 25 billion people.
Yeah.
Okay,
That, and once you
Okay.
lift the oceans up, it kind of kills off a lot of vegetation and
right.
animal life. So
Right. So essentially, what you
because
ended
you
up
cease
with,
having weather.
right? Yeah. So you ended up with essentially a lot of animals that, if they were food sources, then they
Yeah.
were probably conserved. Okay, but if they were just out in the wild, and they weren't of interest to anybody, I mean, they're your snail darters, nobody cared. Okay.
So they can basically vat grow this huge slab of meat. It has no circulation. It has no bones, no gristle. It's just this artificially generated protein that is meat.
Well,
No,
they do
it
have
doesn't look that
animals.
way. It looks like they actually do have animals in containment, and they have vast vertical um, uh, plant
Excuse me.
things. They grow, instead of them being this way, they grow this way with light shining on them,
Listen
and
to the land.
that was how they were dealing with their food issues. Okay, was basically and you saw them in some of the places that you went to in back in Veliki Nova's Grove. Those things where it looked like they were going to have like these pylons attached to these big frames and these pipes. That was all
Hmm.
part of a vast artificial vat grown plants and things like that. So they never got to the point where everybody was eating, slurry, like in the
People.
Matrix. Yeah, it was or eating people. Yeah, that people were, you did. I don't think this would come up in your research, Ken.
Yeah.
But anyways, but yes, they still use that same method for growing plants here. They just use them in large chambers, with artificial lighting.
Okay, I have a question about that. You say that they're given 4 score and
10.
whatever
It's
years to
three
live.
score and
Score
10.
and 10. You're
Three,
thinking of the
3 score
Gettysburg
and 10.
Address.
no,
Oh,
three and
yeah.
10. 3 and 10.
But
Yes.
anyway, so what's a score? It's
20
14
20.
years.
years. The score is 20 years. So
So
that would be 70.
70. Yeah.
So what do they have anybody that lives beyond?
If you could possibly live beyond, they're just simply
But
saying that's just a gift from God.
they don't, are they like Christian scientists and don't have medicine?
No, they have plenty of medicine. Okay. They
Okay.
just, but
So if you're 70 and you get sick and they can do something about it, they will.
they may not. They may just simply say, well, I mean,
They've lived a good
we're
life.
talking about 200 years. Okay. In
Right.
the beginning, you got sick. Basically, you would probably die. Okay. Now, they can fix a lot of stuff that they couldn't fix before.
Okay.
And now
Well,
they
that
have a
They,
much lesser population anyway, so you don't have to worry about people crowding the place.
there is absolutely nothing in anything you read about any population decrease. You're not seeing that anywhere.
so there's
But
still 80 billion people on this planet.
And there's I don't let's see here. I know the estimates are that there is I have the numbers right here. There is 1 billion people living in New Jerusalem,
okay.
and there is uh, there's like 1 million people living in sanctuary.
Well, it's still much less than the figures from when they did the Zamboni uplift.
Yeah, but they don't reference the rest of the world when they do that.
Oh,
Right.
okay. So do
So,
they just not know about the rest of the world, or?
well, it's kind of like I said, you read it and you're like, well, they're not really talking about it. So, how many people were living in these other
Cities.
locations, these other
Right.
cities, and there were 4 other cities. Second here, why I bring that up?
Right. You said something about West Pacific, East Pacific.
Well, okay, I have their names. Hold on a second here. So,
So I'm just kind of curious as to I mean, so that makes me think, that would be a question for the rescue teams is like, have you ever had anybody come from any of these other cities? I guess I'll write that down for later.
yeah, you might want to do that. Okay. So let me see here. Okay, so yeah, okay, so the this okay, so you have New Jerusalem, you have Tianxi, uh, which is uh, uh, you have Alkebulan, which means Garden of Eden.
Akibulan.
Tianxi means everything under the sun.
Akibulan.
You got
Is that like in
Abya,
China?
might be Abya Yala, the land that flourishes. There's Bharat Varsha, the land of Bharata, and you've got Sanctuary City.
There's
Those
no
are
Nauvoo, so I guess the Mormons didn't make it.
those are all the cities that are you find in the literature as far as something that is for children. And
I think the Mormons existed after this world diverged.
It probably did never exist.
Yeah.
yeah. Now you have seen children, by the way, traveling around, but you haven't seen a lot of them. Like as in I can't I mean without you actually taking the time to actually go and try to do a head count, in a public area or looking on TV shows or things like that, broadcasts. I can't give you any number about it, but I'm just saying is that um, they're not they're not rare as hen teeth, but I'm just saying is that there seems to be a predominance of adults versus children.
Okay.
Right. So what other questions do you have?
Well, I'm visiting the Buddhists. Now, since anything I know would be from, the end of the 19th century, it probably has diverged a huge amount. But like, what do they think of like anything I tell them about, maybe teachings? Problem is, as a player, my knowledge about this is sort of limited. I
Okay.
tried looking it up.
All right. Well,
Bad Buddhist.
they are all used. They use the ancient texts. There's like about 5 or 6 books that basically even today comprise what's considered the core beliefs of Buddhism, and they basically are using either a partial amount of that or a larger amount of that. I'm just saying, but it's definitely you probably have more information than they do because remember they escaped, the New Jerusalem with whatever information they were able to bring with them. So it's quite possible that even they're at, they didn't come, like a group of people with libraries. Okay, they basically came maybe with a prayer book, maybe they came with some stories and things like that, and together they've cobbled together their version of Buddhism.
Okay,
Okay?
do they speak Chinese, or is there a group of them that speaks Chinese?
They speak some version of Chinese. Some of them do, not all of them.
So if I were to
Some people
give
just
them,
like Buddhism and
right,
they're there. Yeah,
right, but if I were to give them a Buddhist text in Chinese, could they read it?
they might have some trouble with some idioms because they may not be exactly the same. But
And could I also like compare, like, if I've probably got a lot more text than they do, but since they have some, I can compare the ones that we both have. Is it like
are you going to try
proof?
to tell them that your texts are the same, are correct for their world?
I will not do that. I will say, I don't know, but this is for you to look at and compare.
Okay.
And if you think that these are correct, but you might be able to find out by comparing them, and I have no idea if comparing them is going
All
to
right.
show that they're
So
the
Chen
same.
Wei,
But
give me a history check.
okay, um, it would be inventing that, inventing that too. 5 terrible rolls here.
Okay. All right. Well, from your best guess from reading, and by that I mean you're actually looking at stuff. It seems to you that the point of divergence on this world from the history of Earth Prime
Hmm.
seems to be in the 1400s with Martin Luther. That
Oh,
where there was a bunch of schisms that happened at that point, they didn't happen. The church basically responded to Martin Luther, didn't brand him a heretic, and they basically, you saw essentially the equivalent of Vatican II happening in the 1400s, which made the church enormously more powerful than it had been before. So since Buddhism is a very ancient religion, anything that was from before that would probably match up to what these people had in this world. Okay? I'll be right
Okay.
back. I have to shut a door.
Yeah, looking this up, there are like versions of the canonical works that they put out like many times.
Did we get
Yeah.
experience last week?
I don't think we did.
I don't think we did either.
Although I do get to tell. Oh, speak of him. Yay.
So
Yeah,
I will.
I hope you're not
Uh,
weighing on me.
Actually, Pat wanted me to tell you that they're still working on the furniture, on the paperwork for his furniture.
Okay.
They're still working on the
So
furniture for the paperwork.
They're
It's
still
what I,
at the store.
it's
I
what
get
I
it.
tried to say.
Corridore,
okay,
gonna
so
get a pet.
I will give them what I have, but say like um your Buddhism may be a little different here. I have to be sort of vague about why it's different because being
Because
from a
they're going to ask
shelter
you to,
really wouldn't explain it very well.
do you practice Buddhism in the shelter that you were from?
Uh, I I practice. I honestly, I'm not a very faithful practitioner, but my family does practice, and these are the works that I know of, or a portion of them. I don't
Okay.
know if they would be exactly.
Well, some of them may be known and some of them may not be known, like I said, because a
Yeah,
lot of information was lost.
yeah. If you would like copies of them, I can make you copies of them. It would be your choice whether you think they are things you should treat as canonical works.
Okay.
I'm not going to
Uh,
vouch for everything being absolutely correct,
all right.
but they may be helpful.
Well, they say, can you give us some idea of how much this is going to cost us?
It's not going to cost anything.
You would give it to us for free?
Um, yes, I would give it to you for free. I'd like a copy of any information you might have, but you probably don't have much because of your circumstances.
Um,
And
okay.
it may be difficult to
They
copy
know
it
they know the
into
value of that stuff. So
my systems.
uh-huh. Okay. They're a little confused when you say my systems, since everybody
I
uses
have
the
an
same.
old I have an old style computer which does not which is not hooked into um, the data buddies, and I need to get the information onto that old style computer.
Okay.
And the only way I've been able to figure out is by taking photographs of screens.
Okay. Well, they say he says I don't know how to get it, but we'll be glad to set up a transaction
Yeah.
and email it to you
Okay.
for the amount of data that you send to us.
Yes.
We'll just do an exchange.
Yes.
But it'll be in our system. It'll be your responsibility for getting it out of the
That's fair enough.
of the data flow, the stream. So, but yes, they're very interested to see. He says now it will have to be reviewed by the whatever the elders are in Buddhism to make sure that it is correct, or at least if it doesn't match what they have, which is quite possible because
Yeah.
they it's some things may have been hand copied and then later on mistakes have been made. So they don't have any reason to take what you have as being more accurate than what they have. So it's going to have to be reviewed for inconsistencies, and
Yeah, I
they'll
understand.
want to talk to you about it in the future after they've done that. But they're very grateful that you have information about their faith that they don't have, and they find this fascinating. That you can tell they're all just imagining these large, groups of people all worshiping, the way, and basically trying to achieve a state of nothingness, together, in your place where you're from, and they're just, they ask you questions like, well, how many are there who believe in the Buddha, and have you had any problems with bringing people in and telling them of the truth? Just like anybody with any
Yeah.
religion who is in any way evangelical, you know, would want to know how you will be able to succeed, so that they might consider using that technique for themselves. Because everybody in sanctuary uh, pretty much, has some kind of religious orientation. Okay, a lot of them are basically straight out of, they're Christians. They're basically Catholic. All right, and some of them wanted to incorporate some of their traditions or their folklore into, the and that was considered heretical, of course. So, and
And I
some people just
explained this isn't Chinese,
yeah.
um, and there may be some divergences in Chinese characters written
Are,
down.
are your books written in Chinese?
Yeah,
Okay, so the question is their dialect of Chinese the same as what your books are written in?
I mean, I could give them.
All right, why don't you give
Um,
me a luck check? Let's see. Let's see.
I could translate, specific words if they wish,
Okay.
or they
Well,
could
first,
compare
first make the
texts which
check.
are the same in both five.
You rolled a 5?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that means that they're mostly the same. There might be some dialectal differences, and but it seems like they're pretty much the same as far as the actual Chinese characters and such. So it's um,
Well,
Buddhism.
it's interesting that in China, all that southern area of China has different dialects.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Whereas the
So
rest of the country is all Mandarin, and then there's a very small
yeah.
section that speaks
Well, written
Yin.
Chinese is a lot more is a lot more universal. I
Right.
mean, it's not completely so, but it's a lot more, and it can be used for mutual understanding.
right. But the point is that you successfully made your luck check, and that
Okay.
means that in fact it does match what the writings are that you have. So at least close enough that there might be some idiomatic changes, but because this isn't the same world that you're from, but because the point of divergence was after these were written, it's very likely that any idiomatic differences would be due to people um, copying, and maybe somebody
Wow.
decided to change a word here and there, just like it happened, in the Bible, where they find out that, yeah, this word was mistaken, and it's actually, looking at the multiple texts that we now have, we can see that this word was actually supposed to be something else, and so they corrected it in the modern text rather than slavishly going after the King James version. So okay, that's good. All right, and so yes, of course they'll want you to participate in their in any of these ceremonies, and of course they're going to want to schedule one. They
Yeah.
with you as a thanks, some form of Thanksgiving, because to them, any kind of writing like that they don't have is a huge boon. I mean, it's a major event. It's like someone discovering, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and which was lost, and all they've been doing is going by the Constitution, and suddenly saying, "Oh, were we supposed to do that too? Oh, okay." So that's why it's important. Is why they're a little concerned that to make sure that your stuff doesn't markedly diverge away from what they have, which is not going to happen because, like I said, some writings if they have any later writings, commentaries and things like that, they may not match exactly to the original text, but these are the original texts, and so they're open for other people to look at. So yeah, it is what they are. So yeah, all right. So that's what you've been doing, Chen Wei. Anybody else doing anything? I know that we had some lists of some things that people were going to try to do.
Yeah.
We have a toga party that was coming up with the Zambonis.
Toga.
And they do have weekly swim parties.
You give me that.
There's also, you haven't really spent any time with the Go Back Society. You got a letter from J.C. Joyce, who basically, from what you were able to tell from what they had up on their webpage, they want to normalize relations with the Central Church.
Right. They'll just get along.
They want to set up some expedition, of course, at least one expedition in New Jerusalem, and possibly some of the other places. They want to set up some form of unblocked communication from the Central Church to see if there's more what's the latest music and the latest sermons and things like that. And of course, they're and they also want to communicate with them the success of the sanctuary culture, since that you have all these different religions and they haven't been engaging in wars with each other, which could have happened, especially in the amount of time that they've been there. So they say, look, if we can do it, then you don't have to be such a-holes about not having anybody else's religion as part of your culture. God can accommodate, and so you can too. Just like
That's what.
and they basically have their their apologies, and they actually have apparently they have a lecture series where they basically are presenting their best thoughts about how this is why you in the Central Church are your Excellency the Pope says please listen to these words, and then they basically making their case, and then they take that and they refine it, and then they come out with better versions and erase the previous version, or they dovetail off of that in a different direction. So they're very passionate about what they're doing, whether or not you believe that it's a fool's errand or not. They definitely would like to at least get the opportunity to try. But that apparently is something that requires getting the council to approve. And you've already met the council.
Yeah, they don't seem like the best kind of people to try to get them to listen. Not in this regard.
Well, I mean, if you can understand why they would be concerned about doing anything that would let the New Jerusalem Central Church know where they are.
Oh no, I agree. I mean, I think what she meant was that the Go Back Society are probably not the best people we could get to listen to. Well, hey, let's go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry, I should. Words are hard. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, actually, I thank you for mentioning that, Jason, because I really wasn't getting that. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I, I
they
picked it up,
definitely
but
seem focused on going over, going to New Jerusalem and setting up some kind of,
we're on the road to Judea.
yeah. So, and you might want, I mean, this, and the issues about that might come up with with discussions that you have with the council. So, all right. So that's what you've gotten. But anyways, like I said, so they don't have any particular. They do have meetings, okay, but it's mostly virtual. They're, like I said, they're mostly concerned with the uh, with what, talking about what should we show them. What should be the body of work that we bring to the central church, which strikes you, by the way, that this might be a really good condensation of what we might want to bring back to Earth Prime. Saying this, people have already basically put together their welcome to IDET. It's just welcome to Sanctuary. If we could get this information in a way that we could transport it back with us, then this would, and be a pretty concise summary of
That's true.
what they're into sociologically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not, they're not doing anything about science. They're not interested in science at all. They're interested in song, music, art, that sort of thing.
got all that
And,
stupid
yeah,
science stuff.
and of course, religion, because you have a lot of infusion between a lot of these religions. There's some of them that have formed kind of joint yeah, Native American, um, uh, African kinds of things, like something you might find down in Haiti. Something that's kind of a combination. You know, but the majority of people in Sanctuary are still, you know, are still Catholic, though they're not necessarily. They've given up on the idea of you know the Pope being without
They're
error,
Lutherans.
infallible.
They're Lutherans.
Is that what the Lutherans are?
No, it's just
Okay. Anyways, okay. So, Angel, what are you doing?
Apparently, I'm just gonna look into the Go Back Society because I kind of want to hear them
Oh,
out.
okay. All right. So you can contact JC Joyce, which just strikes you uh, as as a funny thing that you think James Joyce when you hear JC Joyce, but it's just a weird, you know,
Coincidence?
God. And I think Juicy
just
Juice.
yeah, Juicy Juice. Yeah, you can also do that. Okay, that does sound like Jason. Juicy Juice. Hey,
Juicy Juice.
Juicy. Yeah, just call
You guys
call
remember
call
Juicy Juice?
call JC Joyce Juicy. See what that does for you.
Juicy Lucy.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, yeah. Juicy is a guy, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah, it's went by
Awesome.
JC.
I told.
There
Sorry.
is some sexism in the society based on but it's nowhere near what you would have expected it to be for a world that had been so dominated by the Catholic Church with their obvious striation within the church itself. So, but there are still people that think that the best thing that for a woman to do with her life is to raise children.
And I will happily prove them wrong about that. However, at this moment, I want to hear them out.
Okay. Anyways, but like I said, but there's also since in a lot of religions women hold priesthood, so therefore it's not like I said but that's
Yeah.
there's that. Okay. Also, you were kind of asking about, I forget who was asking about it, but as I mentioned, uh, that each of you has gotten, um, let's see here. Okay. All right. It's right here. It's so that would be um, 300 and okay. So Chen Wei, you've gotten 310 offers for your sperm.
Whoa.
Okay.
White gold.
It varies between just wanting a sperm sample and offering to do it the old-fashioned way with you. Okay. Likewise, roll this. Okay. Likewise, Angel has 330 or so people requesting her eggs.
Right then.
A donation. Not,
I know what you meant.
not all.
I know what you meant.
Okay, that's good. All right. And then Jason, there are
6.
410 people want your sperm.
Hey, you win right now.
Yeah, but the
So
question is, how many people want Mike's?
I'm not gonna roll that number since he's not here to react to that. But you all have 400 plus or minus 100 offers for sperm or egg donation.
We're gonna put a pin in this one until next week.
And how many are going to ask for child support a few years later?
That's a good question. You haven't looked into that, Ken.
7.
Chen Wei can look into that if he wishes. All right. So, and
Well, if I ever get hard up for minutes, then
yeah,
I know where to make my money.
there you go. There you go. Yes.
I'm gonna go to the hospital.
Yeah. By the way, is anybody checking into the pornography aspect of this?
I'm pretty
Only feet
sure.
pics.
I'm pretty sure if Cole's character was here, he would be.
Okay. Well, I
But
know
he's
he's
not
not here.
so
I'm
I'm
saying
saying
none of your characters care to
no.
look into that. Okay. All right. All right.
I probably searched for quite a bit when I got to IDET. Never mind when I got here.
I thoroughly looked at the historical documents. Um,
Those poor people.
those poor people.
No.
That is my favorite line every time.
Like Gilligan's Island?
Yeah.
Those poor people.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, and you haven't watched the movie until you've watched it with the
In Thermian.
the Thermian audio track, where
I got about
everyone's
30 minutes into it and I couldn't do it anymore.
oh, it was so good. Anyways, because you can also get it with the sound Thermian and the actual subtitling in
Subtitles,
English,
right.
so you can still watch it and understand.
That movie has withstood this test of time. Swear
Well,
to
this
God.
is what happens when you do something that's in honor of and not a parody of.
Right.
That's the difference.
I agree.
All right. All right. So, okay. So, what now? Tell me what you want to do.
For the fun of it,
I'm
you
gonna
can
go to the
watch
hospital.
Gilligan's Island.
You're gonna go to the hospital? Okay. All right,
Yeah.
Jason. You go to the hospital. You
Okay.
go talk to your doctor friend, right?
I don't have a doctor friend, but
There was the guy that basically was like, putting the noose, the suit
okay.
on.
Yeah, but I wasn't there for that.
Yeah.
So that'd be Gandalf's friend. But I'm gonna go. I'm just basically gonna show up and see if I can find the guy.
Yeah, the person, it was Dr. Kiri.
Dr.
Was the
Carey.
Kiri, Kiri.
Curie.
In English, it's Dr. Kiri. Well, in Latin, it's Dr. Kiri, I should say. All right. And anyway, so he's like, "Hey, how's it going? You here to poked and prodded some more?
Not intentionally.
Oh,
Hypothetically, sure, but not intentionally.
can I can I can I um can we come to an understanding and we can do it a little bit more? I have some I would definitely like to do a lot more testing than I was able to before. We were just making sure you were in good health, but I'd love to get some um, get some uh, samples and
What would you need them for?
oh, just as because you have been isolated from the rest of the population for a very long time. I mean, haven't told us when you were when your thing was set up, but it had to be sometime around 200 years ago because otherwise you would have been already in one of the other cities and you wouldn't have been able to construct it.
Oh, it was before the Great Uplift.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just saying is that so the genetic drift, any uh, chromosomal damage due to
Well, you're
condensation of genetics, him basically using a nice word rather than saying
inbreeders.
inbreeding bunch of so and so's, you know, just does your family tree fork or is it just a bigger and bigger concentric circles? You
It's
know,
more like a shrub.
more like a shrub. Yeah. Anyways, he'd love to be able to do some work like that, but and but he's gonna need somebody to be the actual sample. He can't just. Some of these machines are large and complicated. They you know, can't just show up at your dorm and So we'd like some of your time. We're willing to pay you for it, of course.
Well, maybe we can work out an arrangement.
Okay. All right. So.
What I am here for is that where I'm from, I am a surgeon.
Oh, really? How fascinating. Okay. So you he looks at you. He says, how much communication did you have with the Central Church in New Jerusalem and the other towns while you were hidden away?
None.
So you're still like cutting people open?
Yep.
Wow. That's ooh, that's kind of creepy. But hey, no,
Well,
no,
we got
no
down to
judgment here. I mean,
we got down to microscopic surgery and lasers and stuff like that.
I'm
But
sure you did the best you could. Well, lasers, really? Yeah, they had laser surgery back then. Okay.
mhm.
Check. I didn't
It may
didn't
have been
remember
an
that one.
advance on our part. You never know.
It's great. Yeah, that's creepy. She says. Um, yeah. Oh yeah. It's. So what can I answer you?
Well, I'd
What you?
really love to know what it would take, what your state of medicine is, and how I could learn it.
Oh well. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying that you'd probably have to start at the beginning. You.
I'm not going to be a resident again.
Well, okay, then I'm just saying is that if your level of medicine is circa 1950, then uh, I'm
Well, not exactly that limited.
okay. Well, I'm just saying it's we've gone a long way. I mean, you don't
Well, I would love to observe and participate and learn as much as I possibly can and do whatever it takes to get up to speed with what you're
yeah.
doing and how to utilize your
Well,
techniques.
I'll tell you what. Um,
And for
j-
that, I'll trade you the
can I
testing
get
you want to do.
okay? Well, okay, fine, great, that'd be great. Okay, so he goes over and he takes something out of a plastic wrapper, opens it up. It looks like uh, something about the size of oh, I guess about maybe a quarter of a stick of licorice, and he says, "How about you swallow this right now, and we'll we'll start some telemetry going."
What is this?
This is a just a generalized camera localized scanner. It can like take a lot of samples can see what the cellular lining of your alimentary
Digestive
tract is
system?
like. Any remnants of any food you were eating before. You take a number of samples. It will eventually come out the other end, and we'll retrieve it.
Will I need
Um,
ice cream for that?
you're welcome to eat any
Oh, I
foods
meant
as you
for my
wish.
butt.
What? Yeah.
Nothing.
It's nothing's going in the other way. It was just
Okay.
we want to basically track everything all the way through. So we won't get anything until it hits your stomach. Of course, you're going to swallow it too fast. Okay, but it is self-lubricating, self-propelling. It can actually work backwards against the peristaltic action of your intestine. So it can
I throw it in my
hang
mouth and swallow it.
Okay, all right. So all right, and it basically takes it tastes like a gummy worm, basically.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
and
I
it
just
just
swallowed the carpet.
yeah. Anyways, yeah, and it just slides right on down there, and you might feel a little stirring in your stomach, as it kind of
Bad
swirls
Jason.
about. It swirls about. And he'll even show you. He says, "Hey, if you
Something evil
want,
be dwelling
here,
in there.
since you're a doctor, I'll give you we'll slave you a copy of the feed so you can like check out your innards."
Oh, that'll be fun. I can
Yeah,
show it to my friends. Hey, check out what's going on inside me.
yeah, yeah. You say, "Yeah, I'm gonna eat." And he says, "You eat something, and all of a sudden, you can see it coming in." Like sort of, Anyways, but the
Spaghetti.
yeah, it's not going to be. He tells you it's not going to be able to stay in your stomach. So we want to make
Right. It's
sure
going
you
to
lock.
continue its
But
journey.
once it gets into your intestine, then we can work against the
So
flow.
what will it, how is it just check the digestive and processing tract, or is this also check things like kidneys and liver and
No,
pancreatic function
it's
or
going to do that, but it can also read like vascularization because those are going
hmm,
to be along the walls. It can it can sense your by the electrical interchange of your muscles. It'll be able to tell what kind of tension is there.
I would
Um,
think that it would be nanotechnology since you have seems to have access to that and you utilize it in so many different ways that you would.
it definitely is nanotechnology, but it's all
So is it
packaged.
breaking off nanites as it goes down and traveling in
Oh,
different directions?
oh no, you don't have any nanites.
Okay.
It will harvest some cells, okay, but you'll never notice them, because your
Hmm.
body is sloughing those off all the time and such. But and of course, if you do, I mean, we would have seen already if you had any tumors. Have you actually been through a scan yet?
I don't think so.
Okay, well then they definitely would like to take you through like a full blown scan. But anyways, but yeah, it's going to harvest some stuff, but it's got a lot of nanotechnology that is like put together inside the wrapper. That is
Hmm.
what you saw, what you swallowed. So yeah, you've got quite the research laboratory going on inside there. So yeah, but nano a nanometer is very, very small. So it can't, something that's the size of a nanometer can't penetrate very far. because of that. So having it inside a larger thing like that, I mean, this is not designed to go and break out of your intestine and just start rummaging about your body. That's those are we we prefer to keep you under more. Matter of fact, I mean, not prefer. We would insist on you having like full blown scanners on you to make sure it didn't get itself lost somewhere, or if there was any kind of a blockage, it didn't end up blocking out the blood flow to your heart or a section of
Shouldn't
your
have ate all that
brain.
steak.
All that, because we don't know what kind of condition your your bloodstream and all the rest of it is.
I
It's
think it's pretty good, but I guess we'll find out.
well, like I say, lots of people, they get a little older, and all of a sudden they find out that some of the food they've been eating hasn't, their body actually hasn't been liking it, and so they end up with blockages and
So kind of like
tumors,
milk.
and of course, lots of people have tumors. So, and if we find any of
He's
those,
not a tumor.
if we find any of those, we can certainly get rid of them. So, that's an
Well, I
advantage.
find that all incredibly fan, not fancifying, fantastic,
Oh,
and fascinating.
okay. Not fanciful, huh?
Not fanciful.
All right. Well, yeah,
I would,
yeah, yeah. And
I would definitely like to look into that.
sure, sure. And that's
So take me to your scanner if that's the next thing.
okay. Well, we certainly can. I'm going to hand you off
Do you
to some of my students,
do
and
you have do you have a trauma center where you deal with like emergencies? And
oh yeah, absolutely.
because that's pretty much
Like
what
we,
I was a trauma surgeon.
okay, like we did with your friend.
Yes, I'd be very interested in that.
Yeah.
The
So
process.
the first thing we did, as you recall, is that he was placed in basically a trauma wrapper that prevented any blood loss from exterior wounds, and was able to put pressure on areas of his body that might have had internal injuries. Okay, and it has sensors in it to detect things like abnormal heating in an area, which is usually indicative of rupture. And people do get hurt. There are still industrial accidents that happen. Not everything is computerized.
Right. So, am I allowed to use my advisor while in the scanning process?
You'll have to take, depending upon what the scanning process is, but if we do anything like with an MRI or something like that, then yeah, you're going to have to take the visor off. Okay, but don't worry, because your brain pal is mostly organic, and therefore it's going to, be fine. Okay, but um, and and we can, but I'm just saying is that the most of the techniques we're going to use on you is going to be um, uh, near, um, well, uh, sonic type of sensors, and deep penetrating
But you
uh,
still do magnetic image.
radiation. Well,
You still do magnetic resonance, though.
we do that, but frankly, there's a lot of better techniques that have to do with just really fast sampling of heat images, um, um, and um, and even radiological type methods that are very pinpointed. So it doesn't it's very it doesn't produce abnormally increased amounts of tumors and things like that in your body. So we would definitely, we're not going to take any risks with you, Jason. I just want you to
Right?
feel confident in that. But like I said, there are occasions where an MRI is the way to go. Like if you really want to section um, your body out, then as in from a photographic standpoint, of course, not actual chopping you to bits. Um, you know, that's kind of the way we want to go. We might have to evacuate the sensor that's currently in your alimentary tract. because of that, because it does have
So do you
metal in it.
use tomography, tomography, like
Topography,
tomography,
topography, topography, and tomography. Yes. Yeah.
do you use apocryphy?
Well, we don't use anything. We don't use apothecary stuff.
Apothecary. Okay.
You'd have to go speak to some of those old time religion folks that if you want to get into some of the let's say creative uses of psychotropic chemicals, psychotropic chemicals.
Right. Right.
So and which we do not recommend, by the way, because uh, it's they're the old ways were very lacking in quality control. So, I mean, if you really wanted some, um, some psychotropic chemicals, you could probably get it from the from a pharmaceutical company with a much more reliable, dosage and purity and such. So we prefer that sort of thing. But we know that some people really like to do it, the old way and like gobble down a mushroom or something. And
Like a toad.
you're only guaranteed 20, three score and 10. So
10 out of
Right.
10 do not recommend licking a toad.
sometimes
Have you licked a toad?
your
No.
time is time.
Have you?
It's illegal. It's illegal in Texas.
Why do you know that?
Yes, but deep kissing
I'm
your mom
full of
isn't.
dumb, stupid things. My brain is a cesspool of useless information.
Much like I know it's illegal in Georgia to eat fried chicken with a fork. It is! It's supposed to
It's
be.
illegal to stampede cattle through a bar in Montana.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of strange laws.
Hmm.
Okay. Anyways, anything else I can do for you?
Oh no, I was just curious, but
Sorry.
sounds like this will be interesting. So
Right now, yeah. So okay. Well, and
you'll pass me off to some intern, and
one of my one of my students. Yes. Yeah. We
er,
we
okay.
we don't. Uh, it's there was no term for intern. There was just students. So
Oh,
yeah. He's so apparently once you stop being a student, you either become an instructor or you just become whatever. So,
I see.
anyways, so he actually hands you off to a pair of gentlemen, who are look to be somewhere in their 40s, actually, and
Oh, so the
who
same
are
age as me.
and so they're like, yeah. Says, oh, he says we get to poke and prod you all we want. This is great.
Within
Says,
reason.
you're not ticklish, are you?
No,
Well, we'll find out for sure. We'll
I have a lot of
confirm that.
nerve damage.
We'll confirm that. Well, he says, tickling is considered to be a form of inner of exercise in some religions. Did you know that?
No, I did
Yeah,
not.
it's I believe the term, it's a I think I believe the term is like reflexology or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Where basically by lightly stimulating nerves, it actually causes
So
major
you're gonna
change.
tickle me with a feather and put hot rocks on me? I thought this was science.
No, but we will. We do have a machine, okay, that will do a pinpoint blast of air to every square inch of your body to see whether or not how reactive the nerves are. And of course,
Ah,
you'll be if it is ticklish to you, we certainly want you to say that. But we could probably figure that out just by your nervous response, which we'll also be tracking.
okay.
So, But anyways, it's a good way of finding out if you have any nervous disjunctions, or in some cases, it's a good way of telling how fit you are. Because sometimes you're supposed to react, to that kind of thing, and sometimes, and how much you do could be indications of many things. So, but we'll work out a baseline, and then we recommend that you get into some physical therapy, so that you can essentially, maybe, if we find any things that needs to be addressed, and almost everybody can benefit from some form of physical therapy. So if nothing more than just deep tissue massages.
Okay, well,
Now,
enough
uh,
foreplay. Let's go.
yeah, okay. He says, but we won't put you into a copper bath, and send electricity through your testicles. At least
Well,
not on the first. At least not on the
that's
first visit.
refreshing to know.
It's very refreshing, I've been told.
You first, and
As I
then
recall, and you see him pause with his visor. He says, it's like being nibbled by tiny fishes.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, not to kink shame or anything, but you first.
Well, it's an entirely, self-managed. Of course, we do insist on the it here in the hospital, the voltage be kept to a less than cardiac inducing level.
Well, I certainly hope so.
Well, people, there's all kinds of strange products from all kinds of strange practitioners, from the various things I hear, and there have been quite a few accidental deaths due to self-induced electrocution, electrical stimulation. So, but I see that you're not partial to that, so that's fine. I won't give you the you know I won't give you a lecture on that. But anyways, so let's get to it then. How much time do you have?
I'm open. Just remember, Hippocrates says, "Do no harm." So,
Oh, don't worry. We will definitely do no harm. Because we haven't lost a patient uh, due to scanning them yet. Okay, there's been a couple that were embarrassed by some of the things we discovered. Yeah,
pretty sure I'm not pregnant.
there's more than one person has come in here with a foreign object lodged somewhere, and it's really important to know these sorts of things before you engage in some of the scans. So, we'll definitely, if someone comes at you with a big wand, okay, they're not actually going to levitate you. Okay. They're probably going to pass it over to you and, check a few potentiometers and such.
Okay.
Don't think anything about that. Okay. Also,
Don't
we
mind the
have
man with the wand.
there's a number of robotic type of things that'll like zip zop over top of you and stuff. So,
Well, thanks for the visual, Dr. Jellyfinger.
and if we pull up a whole bunch of little radar dishes all around you, okay, then
See how many channels I get?
it's channels. He doesn't understand that.
I'm
Okay.
just trying to break Kaitlin at this point. And it's working.
All right. Okay, so they start on you. They just start doing all kinds of weird things.
It's a combination of you and the dog. Hey! Speak of dog.
He's a happy dog. He says, "I'm a lap dog.
Yeah.
Let me sit in your lap."
Yeah.
And lick your face.
Dude.
Kind of like a really hairy boyfriend.
Yeah. Yeah, they basically, they do a lot of things. They after they get your clothes off you, they do apply like a bathe of infrared heating on you, so you stay nice and
So they
toasty.
notice that I'm covered in scars of various sorts
Okay.
because,
They,
we've had an interesting adventures here in the fringe
yeah.
paths as well as my
Well,
previous career.
yeah, they don't think anything
Bullet
of that.
wounds,
Do you have any burns or anything like that that might have left some keloids or anything like that behind?
probably.
Okay, because they might suggest that, like I said, they're going to work up a whole thing on you and recommended
Okay.
treatments and stuff. So, if you do have any keloids, then they're going to definitely,
Well, he's a
um,
combat veteran, so
yeah, they're definitely going to say, well, you might want to excise those, or thin them out. We can thin that, you know, and if you have any bone spurs or, uh, diverticulitis, which is one of the things they're testing for with that piece of licorice in you. So anyways, so it's they're going to do this. A lot of the time you're going to have your helmet on, your visor on. They're not going to take that off unless you're going into
so
something that would be a
I
problem.
ask if there's any texts I can start studying while I'm in the
What kind
vat, so to
what kind of
speak.
text would you like to learn about?
Basically your basic medical student stuff that you have.
Okay, so like you want like a text on anatomy?
No, I understand anatomy.
Oh, okay. All right. So,
Like I
uh,
told the other doctor, I was a surgeon, so
uh-huh.
yes, I
So
cut people open.
you'd be more interested in, let's say, um, uh, correction of abnormalities.
Yes, and
You
what
want
your
you so you
processes are.
All right. So you should probably start off with abnormal physiology. So that will
Okay.
cover things like cancers. That'll cover things like
Yeah, sure.
accidents of birth. Um, you know,
And how you would treat them rather than their existence, because I know
right,
of them.
right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. There'll when you get to those things, you'll be able to branch off to recommended treatments.
Okay.
Okay. But it may be a bit of a thing because it's going to reference particular devices and such that you're not familiar with.
Can I look those up while I'm
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying
okay?
it'll probably slow you down
No,
because
that's
it's
fine.
probably going to say, use use a level three, um, you know, you know, course 15, um, actuator, trimmer or something like that. And if you don't know what that is, then you're going to need to check that out. So, but yeah, sure, go for it. Because
Excellent.
anything that, and of course you can always, listen to music. So
Oh, this is kind
if,
of my
if
music.
you
So
get, when you get hungry, let us know. Okay. And we'll try to work around, um, we'll I know that the people in nutrition are gonna want to give you some tailored meals, so which you can you know approve or disapprove of. We got some people that are like, I don't know. I think there's six sons of guns. They like to see, what things that are like plants that are extremely spicy. They like to see how various people's bodies react. And being that you're from a genetic crypt, uh, you're very likely that your body would react somewhat differently than norm here in Sanctuary City. So, we'll try to keep those people at bay as much as possible. So, anyways, so uh, how do you feel about extraction of bodily fluids, by the way?
um how so?
Well, most of what we're going to be doing is adding stuff to you, okay? But at some point, it might be nice to, like take blood samples, take
Just do what you need to do.
samples from your tear ducts, possibly some cerebral spinal fluid,
Be careful. I don't need to be paralyzed.
some a few things, maybe something from your vas deferens, and and of course the stool sample.
As long as you're not selling it.
Oh, of course
There's been a
not.
lot of people asking me for
Oh,
that.
well, they would want a much larger sample than what we're probably going to need. But of course, we would be interested in seeing if there's any, what we would consider abnormal development of spermatozoa and
Okay.
such. And of course, the chemical constituency of your seminal fluid. All right, but he gets very technical, and he's kind of gauging what you can understand. Now he says, if he does, and he goes and says, tell you what, he says, I'll note that in your course of study, and you can go and research that question and such. So you basically, by the time you guys have a basic conversation with each other, he's giving you enough stuff to read for a couple weeks at least, just to read, before you get really down into the weeds. All right.
So to speak.
Right. So yes, they don't have the term weed for marijuana. They have completely different, but you understand when they say the word in Latin that it actually means the same as marijuana. Cannabis, yeah, right. You can watch that character in the chat all day.
Well,
All right.
she said doing a little dancey dance, so.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right.
That's not
Anybody
what
else?
I meant.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anybody else? Got
Take it
something
away,
that they
someone
I
else.
was going to go see a museum and learn about some more of the local history.
Okay. All right. All right. So I'm sure you can find a museum that has some artifacts that were donated and brought from the Central Church, from and even some of the other cities. Okay,
That
it's basically,
also brings me
again,
an
most
idea. For the
the
science stuff, a museum exhibit would probably like have a short description of things. So it seems like and it would also be made for laymen who are not trained in science. So it
well,
seems like it would.
they're made for children. Most museums are. So yeah, I mean, when you walk through the door, then like say you got the augmented reality going on in your visor, so you look at things and it starts listing out all kinds of information, giving you lots of opportunity to learn more. And someone's made, so you can either take the very simple statement of what this is, or you can spend more time going deeper and deeper and deeper into it. Now there is a charge for all that, so you are spending a fair amount of your seconds, but not anywhere near billions. I'm just telling you that everything that you do like that, basically somebody had to take the effort to write it, display it, maintain it, and all that stuff. And so that stuff is is charged to you. You basically understand that a museum is considered now if you are a member of a school or something, then maybe they would it would be covered by the school system. It'd be booked against the school system account. But since you're just an individual, you're just basically paying the fee.
You may as well sign up for classes. We're going to be here for a while.
Anyways,
Well, we were discussing that last time where I was going to be studying some history classes.
there is absolutely nobody in this museum when you're in it, by the way.
Really? not
No
even
one.
customers or visitors?
Well, okay, well, I'm
Or you
actually
mean no employees?
no. I mean there are no visitors there at this time. In and so like I said, this museum that you went to basically talks about the in the section you're in, which is about these other churches and the actual history. It seems like most people seem to know this information, so this information is just there for like school children when they come by, when they get sent there. So
They have no children.
no, you have seen children. You've seen young
Oh,
children. You've seen babies. Okay, it's just you don't see very many of them. As they're it looks like under the age of 20 years of age, there's about one third are children, and about two thirds are people who are over the age of 20.
huh. Wait,
Hmm.
1/3 are children. People under the age of 20, 1/3 are children, and the rest of them are over the age of 20.
No, I mean of any groups that you see that would
Oh,
be
one
that
third of them are children,
yeah, yeah,
and everybody else is over the age of 20.
right. Yeah, basically they're the population that you're seeing under the age of 30, 20 is one third of the population.
Huh?
Okay.
Very low.
Yeah. So it's not like there aren't any kids. They're just
Not many.
considerably less. Yeah,
Hmm.
than you expect. Anyways, all right. So like I said, there are uh, certain things seem like they're designed, even though they do have the flow through to other things. The beginning level is definitely for relatively small children, school age, primary school age, things about the history, and they don't, and there doesn't seem to be like, and you, like I said, you can go deeper and deeper into it, but at certain points you run out of information because, like for example, they don't have like all the arias of um, of religion. I
Okay,
mean,
so
some things are actually, historical things like music and uh, things that are not related to crafts and things like that. A lot of that is strangely missing, and that's why these things
so
are.
what kinds of museums do they have? Like science museum, history museum?
Yeah, like that. But I'm just saying is that they're few and far between.
What
Okay,
about art?
art there modern art. There's actually quite a bit. They have actually some, but a lot, but a lot, and the art is on a revolving basis where they have a certain amount of space that they put to art, and that is there is no there. They only have pictures of really ancient art, okay,
Hmm.
but anything having to do with like something that an artist might have done in, let's say, the last 50 to 100 years, there are examples of that, and there's a lot of pictures because there's apparently a very large artist community who do art about all
Hmm.
kinds of things, and they have online arguments about which art is best, which is derivative, impressionism an advancement on realism, or is it just the reverse? And so you have many people who believe one way or another. So, and you'll hear, and you'll see references to Michelangelo and stuff like that, and some of the pictures will say, currently residing in, and it'll give like a location like one of the five cities. So apparently there's a lot of art that's out there, and they might have some reproductions of it, and there might even be some reproductions that are there in the museum. Like I think they have a reproduction of David, but it's a 3D rendering of it, as in, they basically made it, okay, out of might have been made out
Would
of stone.
it, um, Well, I'd expect that a lot of stuff wouldn't, that they have lost a lot of stuff because they've lost a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
But there's so looking at the art, then the divergence would basically be, well, you said they still have Michelangelo.
Really famous art that predated the 1400s and well, actually predated 1950s. Are like I said that they people have taken pictures of and things like that. It's possible that when they came here, they had some of that, and then this was put into either
So, but
sold or put to a common good, and then they've done things like using modeling techniques, extracted them out into 3D images. Like you can see the backside of the Mona Lisa,
okay,
and by the backside I mean the back of her head and also her buttocks. Somebody has definitely come up with saying, well, this would be like what she would be based upon the size of women in those days and such, and her apparent age.
I mean,
okay,
points for creativity.
Yeah,
yes.
well, there's a lot of fusion between various religions, since there's the major thrust of everybody's social everyday life, cultural life is the interplay between all these different religions that have come there for freedom, and that's one of the main reasons that people have come there. Um, the I mean, some people came there because all of them in a sense are dissidents, except for the ones that were born there and yeah, and they're just this is where I live. This is my world, and that's where you'll find a lot of the go backs are actually people that were born in sanctuary, and now they're like, well, I've never actually been at the other place, and maybe it's not as bad as you all say it is. So, anyways, so there's a lot of fusion. So, like I said, you'll get Japanese images using ink block techniques mixed with with paper mache, um, uh, you know, strangeness, even cubism, will appear. Apparently, the church was was okay with almost any number of forms of art. It wasn't
Except for
very
Raphael, Botticelli,
right, right.
the naked women.
There are, however, you will not find any images of Muhammad of because those people still exist and they still maintain it is sacrilegious to have an image of him. So that you won't find any of those
If
in
you
the
don't have any
museum.
images of Muhammad, how do you know what he looks like?
They don't know. They don't care. It's not important. What's
So you could have a
important is
picture of an apple and call it Muhammad, and that would be an image of Muhammad.
An
Just
apple
saying,
with a
it's
face
kind of
on
weird.
it.
that would obviously be a
How can you ever see Muhammad in a piece of toast? Like they did with Jesus,
right. You can't, and they would be
because
fine
you
with
don't
that.
know what he looks like.
They're fine with that. What's important is is the Quran. That's what's important.
As long as
Anyways,
they stick to the little Quran, then it's all right.
yeah. Anyways, and yes, there are um, uh, Islam does exist in sanctuary.
Okay. So right now it's sort of out of ideas of things to ask about. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, Jason, at some
what
point during this analysis they're doing, you're going to wonder if maybe you should just get married to some of the texts.
You want to see what?
You should just get married to some of the texts because,
Why?
they know you so intimately.
Oh, I don't like my significant other to know that much about me, so that's right out.
Yeah, trust me, they know more about you than your significant other does, except,
I'm a man of mystery.
except
Not anymore.
psychologically.
Well,
Okay, Bruce, one question. What
you may
if I
know
were
how
to
an engine works. You don't know how it drives.
in
So.
this world, like what jobs are, I guess, the most common among people?
Okay.
Um,
Street
All right. Well,
sweeper.
this is
or
actually
and specifically differences from like IDET or 1900s.
oh okay. So this is actually something that's interesting is that there is a very very very
Very.
strong you know strong work ethic. Okay. I mean, there is so much about how a man is not defined, by his work, but by his willingness to work, and that and to remove the possibility of work from a man is to imperil his very soul.
Hmm.
So and that this has actually been part of uh, the Catholic Church beliefs for at least 300 years.
That'd
It's
be why
only
my ex-wife left me, is because I was married to my work more than I was to her.
mm, you and a lot of other people, so the but anyways, so there's definitely that. You basically are not finding a whole lot of information. I mean, you basically can get a list of jobs, and it is in the thousands and thousands. Okay, and you can get but the number of people, but you get a percentage of the population, but actual raw numbers of how many there are seems to be suppressed. Doesn't seem to be there. They just come back and say this information is not currently available. It's almost as if people don't want you to know how many people there are.
Hmm.
They went to the
But you
Mariana
can get a
Trench.
breakdown. And yes, there is a very uh, there are basically a lot of people doing a lot of jobs, more than it's and sometimes people are in multiple jobs. Okay, so and as a matter of fact, if you look at them, it's like it seems like everybody is a Renaissance man or woman because they and it looks like they could do more than one thing at a time, or they're involved in more than one career. Though a lot of them are associated to each other, but usually everybody has at least one or two things that they are listed as a job that are completely unrelated
Hmm.
to what would be to where the well unrelated to like another one of their professions. So it looks like people wear multiple hats.
I take it like some things probably there probably wouldn't be so much of, like there'd probably be like fewer, like things like stores would be automated and such, right? And
No, actually, it seems
do
like
they have self-driving cars?
they do have self-driving cars, but most stores and such do have people in them. As a matter of fact, like I said, there are employees at this library, and they just like in the Russian museums, everyone sits in a section and knows everything in that section. And you'll see people get up and leave, and then someone else come in and take their place on a
Hmm.
regular basis. Any more questions?
Not that I can think of at the moment.
Yeah. So, now why that is a question you might want to ask, but you haven't. So, just saying. Um, there, there are a lot of there are well, I don't know how much you know about these sorts of things, so give me a check in biology.
For me,
Yeah.
that would be D4 -1
All
minus
right.
2.
All right.
And a D6 minus
2.
2.
2.
And a D6 minus 2, she's saying.
Oh, yes, it's 2.
Okay. So yeah, you have no.
You want to use your card for a +2?
No.
Okay. All right. So basically, that information it doesn't occur to you, so I haven't told it to you. So all right. Anything else, guys?
Not that I can think of. I mean, people have suggestions.
Okay.
I do ask while I'm in the soup. How many patients do you guys see every day?
Well, this isn't the only. This is the biggest hospital and trauma center. Accidents are, but there's lots and lots of emergency techs all over the city. Um, so, I mean, and sometimes people don't need to come here, except maybe as a follow up, and also to maybe update their records and
So you
such.
have clinics then throughout?
Yeah, well, mostly what we have are people that are trained as emergency medical technicians and nutritionists and all these other things like that, and they travel around and they're assigned jobs through their advisors and such,
Oh,
and
how
that
many of those do you
information.
have?
Oh, thousands, thousands. We're a very healthy bunch.
I see.
It's and we don't have a whole lot of accidents, but it's really important to keep people as healthy as possible. You're
So am I the first outsider you've had in quite some time?
Oh yes, we haven't had any new people from outside for at least 10 years.
And most of them have all been from New Jerusalem.
They were from New Jerusalem. Yes, I mean
Have you ever had anybody from any of the other cities come to you?
I haven't personally no, but you know I I know that at the beginning, yes, we Sanctuary was fed by a lot of other cities, but no, it's the but yeah, the Central Church just has gotten better and better at cracking down on that sort of thing, which is why we do have agents, in I'm not part of the rescue team,
Mm,
so I really can't answer that. But we do. I know we do have agents in the central, in the Central Church,
mm,
and to try to help people get out if they
I
wish it.
see.
So those people are face lifelong imprisonment if they're caught. So I don't really know anything more than that they exist. But yeah, I imagine that there's probably plenty of them in the in many of the cities. So, but yeah, the last person who came, did come from New Jerusalem. The last
Mm.
group, yeah, it was a family, and
Uh,
yes,
Bruce, now we sort of tried to tell the government that we're from another world rather than from a bunker.
yeah.
Have they like said like have they like came back to us and asked us, do you have any more information, or do you have proof of this particular thing, or do you have, more videos or more historical documents or something?
They haven't, but it hasn't been that long either.
Mm.
So it's only been I figure at this point it's since you went to see the council, it's probably been about no more than a week. So
Okay.
that you guys have been doing a lot of stuff. So it might be a little boring to hear, but you guys have been busy doing stuff, And okay, and so yeah, and you literally a couple of times, Jason, you literally are, in soup, what it looks
Yeah,
like,
well, that's what I
uh,
figured.
with with a mask over your head and stuff like that, breathing
Water
through,
tank.
I
yeah,
thought you
Cool.
had said soup on accident.
Nope,
yeah,
I meant
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Are there vegetables floating with me, or not actually putting me in a soup? But
There are things that
Meat
are bumping
chunks.
up against you while you're in it.
are they
I don't.
carrots, onions, and celery?
It's meat.
They. Let me see how opaque it is.
Meat soup.
Try our new visitor
Oh,
soup.
yeah, it's actually pretty. It's actually pretty clear. So you see a whole bunch of strange things that are swimming in the soup around you and stuff. Prodding at you and doing stuff. It's an
Maybe
awful
it
lot
actually,
like yeah.
maybe
It's
it
an awful
actually
lot
is.
like that thing that was in Neo's stomach.
Maybe it actually is
Little
meat.
under
It could be fish.
little underwater shrimpy type critters that are like swimming about you. But it's not you're not like in a giant Olympic sized pool either. You're basically in something about the size of a jacuzzi. Yeah,
Ah, jacuzzi.
yeah.
When
So
I was a kid, we had to fight in a tub to have jacuzzi.
yeah. hmm All right. So that was they basically finish up, and it's
How long did the
taken.
whole process take? Yeah, I was going
I,
to ask.
I
Like
don't
4 hours, five
oh no,
hours, eight
no.
hours.
Takes 16 hours.
Holy crap! You guys are probably wondering where the hell I went.
Yeah. Well, most of it they could have talked to you.
Eh,
Well, I know, but would they have bothered
if
I
all
don't
else
know.
until
fails,
they
I would have
realized
thought
I
They
wasn't
didn't. They
around?
didn't seem like they were very interested to talk to
No.
you. But
if
The
all
hell with him. He's dead.
if all
yeah,
else failed, I
yeah,
would have thought you got kidnapped.
right.
I would have come looking
So,
for you
anyways,
eventually.
when you're done, they basically give you a slew of things that are wrong with you.
Like
Okay.
what? Like what? Like
Oh,
what?
you've got electrolyte imbalances. You have a few minor adhesions in your lungs from a previous injury. You have a narrowing of the diameter of your coronary arteries, though nothing bad. Though compared to them, it actually is worse than that, which kind of
So
surprises you because you figured that you've been feeling better about yourself as you've been traveling the Fringe Pass.
right, and I'm
Right,
in pretty good shape because we do a lot of activity.
right, right. And
So
and by the way, you do have considerably more muscle mass than the average person. They basically are like, the recommendations to your body is not strengthening, but increasing your amount of mobility, range of motion, things like that. Um, they do suggest big changes to your diet. Um, they seem to have a bunch of vitamins that you've never heard of. Um, they
huh? What are these?
Yeah,
If I don't
um,
recognize it, I'll ask. What's this?
and they'll tell you. It's usually it has to do with some of them have to do with metabolic um, managers, and other
Hmm,
ones have to do with neurological things.
okay.
Um, and they said, it says now, uh, and of course your brain pal, uh, 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 your brain buddy
Hmm.
helps moderate that sort of thing. But the
Kid named Jeff.
yeah, but definitely uh, we think you should get onto a regimen of this or that. Hey, you can order that from your normal food supplier, and they'll
Huh?
just some foods just have it like in the food,
Mm-hmm.
Like these are these are your cookies that basically regulate your handle your fiber and or
So
but they do say that if you really want to get the maximum blood flow in certain areas, you probably should get a nano a microscope intravenous intracapillary cleansing. Get
what
rid
is
of all.
that?
Well, they're just going to go in and just slice off any narrowing, any growths of of any hardening of your arteries and veins and things like that.
Okay. How
But
much does that cost?
oh well, it's not. It's it's going to be a lot because you haven't been doing it all along, but it's not terribly expensive. It's not. You're not going to go into a life debt or something like that.
Well, let's schedule it. Come
I
on.
mean,
Give me the
as a
workover.
matter of fact, is that nothing in
Give me
your
the
body
juice.
is so bad that you would need like emergency surgery or anything like that. It can wait.
So,
Everything
looking
can
at
wait.
the results, is it any better than when I started when I started doing the fringe pass? Do I notice any change?
Well, since you've been walking the Fringe paths, you've actually gotten more pep in your step, and you feel better. Just in general,
Mhm.
you feel better than you did when you started, and a lot of that you have put to the fact that you're a much more active lifestyle than you used to have, and you are getting the best of care from the Hatsumi-based doctors and things like that. But these people, are looking at you and saying, you could be so much better. And it's surprising because you didn't really think,
Yeah.
and the gamut is so extensive over your body, that basically they're finding something wrong almost everywhere, and but they're saying, but it's all treatable, it's all fine, don't worry about it.
It's okay. Don't worry about that.
We'll we'll just a little nip and tuck, and you'll be right as rain. Of course
All
they don't
right.
use that term since they're
Because they don't know what rain is. Yeah. Um,
you'll be
hasn't rained in their lifetime.
yeah. So
Um, well, sign me up,
okay,
and I'll keep working on these textbooks.
all right. So you look, they basically present a budget, a budget to you, and it is quite expensive. It's like 1 billion seconds.
1 billion seconds.
It's
Well,
about 1 billion seconds
guess
to
I better start doing those feet videos.
yeah, yeah. So it's a lot,
You may want
but
to do a poll to make sure that people are into that thing.
and you might yeah, and you might also just think about what do I, I mean, it is all broken down, so you can say, well, I can do this, or we can do that, and we'll get to that later, whatever. So
How many
there's a
seconds did Chen Wei get for running a couple of
nine
I got
songs?
nine
a number of billions, which means a
9
billion
billion
is a substantial fraction of it.
9 billion.
9 billion. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Wow, who became a miser all of a sudden?
yeah. So basically, if you got everything done, if he was splitting it equally, you'd be like, you'd be half of your wealth.
Ah,
But at the same time, is that they're some things are like your changes of diet are just things that you're expect is no real big deal,
not
to
really,
do.
since probably not eating MREs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Actually,
but
having them supply the food is going to be a big
yeah,
difference. So,
and of course, some of these drugs that they're talking about are you know you probably won't be able to get off of this world.
so it's not a one and done thing. That's something I have to take consistently.
If it has to do with diet, it's definitely not
Oh,
one and done. Okay, but there's a lot of stuff. Well, there's things like, for example, the narrowing of your arteries and veins and such. Okay, that's something that, if it's being caused by your diet or caused by aging, then it's going to come back. I mean, you're just you're getting it to the best it can be, and then if you stop doing it, is going to get worse. But the point is that it's like I went into I went to the doctor and he said to me, well, he says a baby has uh, a value of this for the good, the good and bad cholesterol. We all want to be like a baby. It says, I have this and I really have to work on this. You have this, which is higher. And I said, okay. He says, but my entire life I've had that.
Right.
Everyone's always told me that my cholesterol was high, even when I was in my 20s. So
Right.
is it really bad or not? And he said, well, overall you seem to be fine, except for, so, but I think you need to get on, this,
stat.
statin and other things like that, to keep your blood vessels more limber and other things like that, so he said it's,
Well, I'm going to sign up for the artery thing and the brain thing.
like I say, it's definitely something for you to choose. No one's going
I
to
choose
force
that.
you. No one's going to
Yeah, I'll
force
choose
you
it.
to do anything. Yeah.
You
I want to
just
see if it
float in
improves
soup.
me.
All
You
right.
just want to float in soup.
Yep, I like the soup.
Yeah. Right.
Very
Okay.
relaxing.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll make
And
arrangements to get further
and by the
soup.
way, you still have that piece of Twizzler
Oh yeah,
in your intestines.
it's not finished yet.
Yeah, it's gonna. He needs to look at things over like like a couple weeks.
Well, I'm gonna have myself a nice protein shake and
Yeah, they promise you it won't accidentally come out. That it'll when you start
goes
doing when you start
grabs the sides.
having a moment, having a movement, it'll adhere itself to your intestinal
Okay,
tract,
no,
and that way you
you'll
don't have to
wait for
worry.
Beethoven's fifth movement.
Yeah, you won't end up with anything dangling. Yeah,
Anal
like
leakage.
like a tapeworm.
Ah, I'm Henry. I'm the tapeworm that lives inside you.
Yes,
Jason, no.
and
Bad
if you
Jason.
wish, by the way, you can name your probe Henry.
Henry.
Yeah, you can
Ooh,
put
here
the
comes some
feed,
popcorn.
but you can label the feed Henry, and that way it's him. It's it. Yeah. All right. Okay, I think we better stop at this point since they're still basically doing stuff, and the rest of you guys don't have anything you want to do. So, like I said, for the next
Oh, I'd
meeting,
be willing to do anything. I'd be happy. Well, I mean, I just don't want to leave them behind either.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'd
Well,
go
I'm
to the
just
pool
saying it's
party or
after 10,
something.
guys. It's after 10, so
Oh, is it?
yeah,
It's 10:05.
Okay.
yeah.
Oh,
Let's go ahead and
okay.
stop here. You guys can have 5 experience points. I'll
Okay,
put
you